Here we go. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Menopause Made Easy with Tanya. I have a fabulous guest today. Oh my gosh, this is going to be such a great conversation. Before we jump in, though, I just want to say I'm at an Airbnb. My husband's going to walk in the door. My dogs are going to go crazy. So when that happens, just it's life. So there you go. All right, Christine. Christine and I share very similar stories. She wrote the book Sugar Freed. I'm so excited to jump in. So, Christine, welcome and tell us about you and your journey.
Thanks for having me, Tanya. I'm really excited to be here and to share with your audience to give them some encouragement. So, let me put you in the lowest point of my life. And I was about 40 years old, perimenopausal. I ended up so exhausted on a climb in the mountains in Mountain National Park with my husband that I actually had to sit on the sidelines of life again. I thought I could make it up this trail my husband picked this trail. We were heading to Nymph Lake and I looked at the trail marker and it said a half a mile and I thought I can do a half mile, right? So, but I got halfway up that trail, up that path, and the incline was rather steep and I could not go another step further. I was gasping for air, my knee was aching, and besides the physical problems I was having, I was just like an emotional wreck too. And I, I was just so used to letting down my family and not being able to participate in life. So I told my husband go on without me, and he was like, "Are you
Mhm.
sure?" I'm like, "Yes." So I sat on that stump and I just had this really I imagined like the hikers that were passing me by were saying things like, well, she wouldn't have to sit there if she would just eat less and move more. Or, she needs to eat a salad. I just had these negative conversations in my mind, which I was very used to after yo-yo dieting for 30 years. But
Mhm.
I remember saying a simple prayer to God, and I just said, I just want to feel better. Lord, I just want to feel better because I had lived chronically exhausted. And at that point in my life, I was morbidly obese, more than 100 pounds overweight, and a lot of chronic health issues were piling up. Only 48 years old, and I started wondering, am I going to be around to meet my grandchildren? And God answered that prayer because some way, somehow, I came home from that trip. I went back to Michigan where I live, and I had a new resolve. I call it this new resolve that settled on my heart. Like, I'm not going to continue living like this. I'm going to take back control of my health. And the very first thing I did was something I had put off for decades, uh, that my husband was very happy about. But I scheduled a sleep study, and
Mhm.
the reason I didn't want to do that is because I did not want to come home with a CPAP machine. That just sounded so uncomfortable. Nobody says, I love my CPAP machine, right? But I have to tell you that first medical intervention changed my life. And I actually did love my CPAP machine because I
Mhm.
started sleeping better for the first time in my life. And through that medical intervention, I started having this new curiosity about my hormonal health. And that just led me down this rabbit hole of so many interventions that have completely reversed all those chronic health conditions and completely changed my life. And now I'm here to share with you about that journey even more in depth. So
Yay!
that's where it started, on the side of a mountain in beautiful Colorado.
So I'm sure before that, though, because I look at my book, I wrote Cookie Dough in the Dark, and my addiction to sugar and the
Hmm.
emotional eating element. And
Yes.
there's so many times where I'm like, okay, Monday's going to be it, or this is going to be it. I'm
Yeah.
changing my life. This is it.
Yes.
And so I'm sure you were mentioning the yo-yo dieting where like you definitely had that aha moment, like this is, but I honestly think like all the other times before that, um, did you find like a change in attitude? Because when I look back at my story, I'm just like, it was always with some force. It was always with a restriction. It was always with punishment. It was always with, um, just not understanding myself. I didn't have the skills. Like there's so many things I was missing. And it was just like, okay, I was emotionally a wreck, but didn't. realize it, I guess. And so leading up to these times before that, when you were talking about your yo-yo dieting, was there ever a time where you were like I want this to stop and it just wasn't? Like, what were you doing during those times? What?
Yes. Yes to all of that. Yes to everything that you just said. And I
Hmm.
love the title of your book, The Cookie Dough in the Dark, because I did a lot of secret eating. I did a lot of eating in the dark,
Yeah.
metaphorically and really, literally, I did a lot of eating in the dark too, hiding everything. But yes, so much yes to everything you just shared. I was following standard American dietary advice.
Hmm.
And for all of those years, I signed up, I paid for a lot of dietary interventions and
Hmm.
programs. And even at one point, I paid a large sum of money to a hospital program, drank nothing but liquid protein shakes for 10 months, did
Oh,
not eat once. I did lose some weight. I lost a significant amount of weight, but as soon as they put me back on food, I would, and following their plan, I started eating like half a baked potato and whole wheat bread and whole wheat pasta. And my weight started creeping back up. And I was like, what in the world? It was devastating. It crushed my soul. And that was another time I just threw in the towel again. I would go through these cycles of, I can't do this anymore because now I had been listening to a couple of your episodes, and one of them made me think about that protein shake diet. And every time that I lost weight over those 30 years, I felt like I was literally starving myself to death all the time. Like I was
yeah.
so hungry all the time. My mind was on food all the time because I was hungry. And so the like I said, I really think that sitting on the side of that mountain and just like surrendering that. I'm a woman of faith, so I really believe that God's hand was all over my journey back home,
Yeah.
because he just gave me such a curiosity. And so I was able to go through this healing journey step by step. It wasn't all at once, quit sugar on the day I got home. It was a really fascinating intrigue with our hormonal health. And, I was going into, I was at 48, so I was starting to enter that midlife season of life too. So I was like just super curious and spent hours and hours and hours going down many rabbit holes, and finally got to the point where right after I came home from that trip too, I had been having painful ovarian cyst. So my gynecologist ordered an ultrasound, and from the ultrasound, the cysts were confirmed. But I also learned that I had fatty liver disease at that time. So like this is all part of everything piling up. I was already pre-diabetic, and just the aches and the pains and the exhaustion. So just learning that sugar was a major hormone disruptor. I don't even know where I read that on the internet, but that was the key that I needed to go on this journey. And step by step, gradually got myself off of the standard American diet that's loaded with sugar. Even if you are eating, a so-called dietary plate, I'm very carbohydrate intolerant, had insulin resistance that nobody ever told me about all those 30 years. And so that was really the key, to getting off sugar and quitting sugar and living what I call a sugar-free lifestyle. That's how I got here. So
Yes, it's interesting when you say about your journey, how we were both so controlled by food, right? It was the
yeah.
food. And
Mhm.
it's when you finally, and I love the word you use, curiosity, when you finally surrender and you get curious and you stop forcing and you allow yourself to be on this journey. So, in regards to your faith, why do you think it took? It's always interesting when, God comes in, right? Or
Mhm.
that you feel ready. Why do you think you had to go through it so long to get to that point? What
That's a
what
yeah.
lessons?
That's a great question. And this is why I love to coach women is like, don't wait as long as I did, right? And what the key for me is really quite simple. I was raised in a Christian home. I was raised going to church. I kind of left the faith a little bit. I didn't ditch my faith, but when I went away to college, I just, I didn't find my own church. I didn't get involved in anything. So I could see like where that weakness came in my faith life. But for those 30 years, I describe myself as what I call a casual Christian because I would go to church off and on. I would take my kids to church because that was the right thing to do. I didn't want my grandparents to be disappointed in me, so I would take my kids
Hmm.
to church. And it wasn't until Tanya, when I came home and I got that sleep study and I started waking up refreshed for the first time in my life. I had all this extra time before I actually had to leave to commute to my corporate office. And for the first time in my life, I started picking up my Bible every single day. And
Mm.
that's where I discovered I knew there was stuff in scripture about how called to care for our health. But all those years, I never thought that God cared about how I cared about my health. Like, surely he's got way bigger things to concern himself with. So
Right.
it wasn't really until actually I had the best guidebook. I call it the best guidebook, besides all the dietary advice that I've discovered that helps someone like me with insulin resistance. So it really was like a combination of healing my physical body, healing my emotional mind, my thoughts and behaviors and patterns around food. But having that faith foundation is really what keeps me standing up every single day. Like, and then the physical, the food choices, the fasting choices, all that just became very routine and habitual and in my life. And yeah, it's all grounded in that faith. So yeah, it is
Hmm.
just, I do wonder why 30 years, but
Yeah.
that gives me this passion to help women like break free sooner than I did.
Yeah. And I think sometimes it is the time because when I started, overeating to stuff my feelings down as a teenager,
Mm.
my parent, when my book even came out, my mom didn't even know what I was going through. Like there was just different language. It was a different time,
Yeah.
right? And so that's why I had so much shame and guilt for so long, just holding this in. And so I think it is part of just, this new world we live in as well. Like everything happens when it's supposed to happen. So.
Mm.
How did you? So, first of all, I've talked about sleep so many times in my podcast. Like, it's so important for when you are rested, you are better able to make decisions. You are more creative. You're not craving sugar. So, I can definitely see that how that was a big. Did you realize you had a sleeping problem?
Oh, yes. Well, maybe not so much because I felt like I pushed through the day every day. At that
Right.
time, I was a corporate controller, had a full-time job, career managing my kids were like late teenagers at the time too when this whole Resolve and mountaintop scene took place. But I lived chronically exhausted. Like every day, I just wanted to, if I wasn't thinking about food, I was thinking about crawling back into bed. So, yes, I do know I was exhausted. I do know that a sleep study would have helped me, but I was just so stubborn about that. But and then you mentioned the thought, making good choices or having clear thoughts. Like once I started getting off the sugar and detoxing from that, my mental clarity came back, and that was amazing. I remember telling my husband like something very strange is happening to me right now. And I tried to explain it the best way I could, but then I realized I had been living under brain fog all of those years. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and it literally felt like a fog lifted off of my shoulders, and I could see things so much clearly. And all of those years that I was in that cycling of the yo-yo dieting, I never would have called myself a sugar addict, because
Mm.
I was not the type of person that would sit down and eat a half a sleeve of Oreos or the cookie dough,
Yeah.
or the ice cream. I preferred the savory sugars, like the starchy carbohydrates, like potato chips and crackers, and oh, I filled up on so much bread. Like I ate. I look back and I realize I ate a lot of bread. I filled up on bread. If there was a bread basket on the table, I filled up on that first.
Yeah.
That was of course I did eat, cake and pies and things when they were presented at a function or at a birthday celebration, whatever. But I quickly learned once I started going down this rabbit hole that those foods, the savory foods that I liked, the chips, the bread, the pasta, the potatoes. I'm an Irish girl. I love potatoes. I had potatoes at every single meal. Those were just quickly digested into sugar once I hit my digestive tract. And so that was a real light bulb. As soon as I discovered that, on the day that I found, I'm sure you're familiar with Dr. Jason Fung.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay, so he wrote the Obesity Code. That is the book that changed my life. But first, his little short video that I found on Diet Doctor one day, when he looked in the camera and he said, "This is not your fault. You've been given bad advice for so many years." I had tears in my eyes. I'm
Mm,
like, what do you mean this is not my fault? Because I have carried this guilt and shame about my weight, and I've been made to feel guilty and ashamed about it. Every time I would visit a doctor's office, you need to lose some weight. I'm like, yes, I know. Like, I
yeah,
know I need to lose weight. I know that deep in my soul. I know that. But help me. I was crying out, like, I not literally crying out, but all those years, I'm like, why can't I keep this weight off? No one
yeah,
ever talked to me about insulin resistance all of those years. So finding Dr. Fong was actually the key that broke my obesity, because when he said that night I watched that video, I also discovered, oh, the bread, the potatoes, and the pasta, even though I was eating whole wheat bread and whole wheat pasta at the time, that is what is destroying my health. And that was the last day I ate bread, potato, and pasta. And then my weight just started just melting off.
yeah.
And then I was sold,
I,
completely
I
sold.
always say to my friends, because we have been marketed, we have been programmed, we have been brainwashed, whatever you want to say, to, when I talk a lot of time when I'm talking about sugar, I say to people, it's not like I'm eating sugar out of a sugar bowl. Like there's
Mhm.
sugar in so many things, right?
Right.
And I said, and people when I talk to them about sugar, they go, "Well, I eat chips. That's not sugar." I'm like, "No, it is sugar because your body, that's
Yes.
what your body recognizes as sugar. There's
Yes.
carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, right?" And so this re-education, and we have just been um I don't know. I don't know if it's lied to or manipulated, but it is really understanding that those are the three things your body recognizes.
Yes. The
That's it. So,
macronutrients.
so it
Yeah.
doesn't matter if it's maple syrup or brown bread or
Right.
a cookie from the store or a homemade cookie, your body sees it as the same thing.
Yes.
It's sugar. It's
Right.
a bag of chips. It doesn't matter if it's salt and vinegar. It doesn't matter if it's organic. It's
Right.
still the same thing. You can eat a bag of chips or you can eat cookies. Same thing.
Yes. Yes.
So when this is one thing I recommend to ladies to get this blood test done because everybody, I mentioned getting your HbA1c done, but I'm also like, you should know your fasting insulin
Mhm.
because this is what you're talking about, which I'd like to talk a little bit about, is that insulin resistance happens years before your HbA1c number can show that you're pre-diabetic. And we don't get tested for that. So I am, letting women know like this is a number that a test you need to ask for so that you can start understanding. I've even told my kids to get it done. They're in their 20s, so whatever they do is up to them. But this is a number that's really important. So how did that come to light for you?
Yeah, actually, I in my coaching program, I definitely now I'm a health and wellness coach, so I can't
Yes.
prescribe for them to get that test, but it's definitely one of the very first lessons that I share is like you have to get a doctor to order this test for you. It is if I'm telling you to get one health marker, that is it, right?
Yeah.
It's the fasting insulin. And that's what we're working on improving, ladies, because you have to reverse that. And then all your chronic health issues are going to be managed and reversed. Some of them even reversed. I'm not pre-diabetic anymore, and I was just one blood test away, no doubt, of being diagnosed type 2 diabetic. And so, yeah, and I reversed my fatty liver disease too through this lifestyle. So, yeah, fasting insulin is super important. Doctors don't order it. And I've had some of my coaching clients say that their doctor refused to order it. And then I'm like, well, let's go find a lab that will just let you
Yeah.
walk into it. So it's a really important health marker.
Yeah. Now, what would you say for, just giving some of my listeners example, what would your breakfast look like before and after? And just
Okay,
like maybe a lunch and a dinner. What's like a before and after?
okay, so this is a great question. I love to tell this story. When I discovered this Dr. Fong and the very low carb lifestyle, I was in program for diabetes prevention. And it was like a 6 month long program. And so I was following their guidance. And I won't mention the organization, but it's very well-known organization in America. So I was following their guidance and I was eating as soon as I got to the office, I made this. I wasn't even hungry. I was eating a bowl of oatmeal with blueberries and a drizzle of brown rice syrup because I thought that was a healthier sweetener,
Yep.
sugar, right? So every morning I was eating that. And, I tried to be healthy about it. I got the steel cut oats. And okay, so then I'm eating that every day. And not hungry, mind you, not hungry. And then by 10 a.m., I'm starving because my blood sugar is crashing.
Yep.
And so then I'm eating the snacks, the snackables or whatever that's approved by this program, so eating 5 to 6 times a day to keep up with this program's guidelines, not losing any weight, wondering what in the world is going on with me. And at that time, I had a fairly healthy HbA1c too. It was like borderline creeping up to type 2 diabetes. But um, then I discovered Dr. Fung, and I secretly ditched all of their guidelines. I stayed in the program, and I
Mm-hmm.
was the only person in that program to lose a significant amount of weight. And when I told the dietitian what I had been doing at the end, I didn't want her to include my stats in her reports because I wasn't following the program, and her jaw hit the floor.
Yeah.
I love that. But yeah, I don't get hung. I didn't, I, then I, so I stopped eating oatmeal first thing in the morning and I allowed my natural hunger cues to dictate my breakfast time, which is typically around 11:30.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I don't, like my typical meals are very meat protein, very poultry or fish focused first, and then some and low carb vegetables. And I will eat fruit occasionally, like blackberries. I eat berries because they're the lowest in sugar. But for the most part, it became very protein focused, which was the exact opposite of what the standard American diet was telling me to do. It was telling me to eat a little fist size of protein and load up my plate with, half my plate carbohydrates, and some fresh vegetables or whatever. But yeah, now most of my plate is made up of the meat or the fish or the chicken or poultry or eggs, so I'm no longer afraid of eating eggs. So
Yeah.
I flipped the food pyramid upside down way before the US and dietary guidelines caught up, right? But now
Yeah.
I'm really happy that they have caught up. And so it'll be interesting to see if that program changes their guidelines to help people that are pre-diabetic before they become full-blown diabetic. I don't know. But yeah, I completely changed the way I eat and I'm not deprived because once I eliminated that sugar from my lifestyle, the sugar cravings quieted. I was able to control my sugar addiction and my, carb cravings. I found it in like the root of all of this was those cravings, and they never went away because I was constantly feeding them, even though I thought I was eating healthy,
Yeah.
whole wheat pasta. Yeah, so it was really an amazing discovery, and I'm really grateful that God took me through it step by step too, because if he would have said, okay, rip off the Band-Aid, everything has to go on this one day sitting on the side of that mountain, I would have been like, I don't know. I needed to build the little wins and the victories and the momentum to keep going.
Absolutely. It's interesting. I had some people I know go through diabetes, and I'm like the program, and
Hmm.
I'm just shaking my head. And you put somebody in a position of authority, right? And and then there's me who has gone through this, and I'm not a dietitian. I have like nutritionist, but
Hmm.
it broke my heart because, again, if you eat a bowl of cereal, but then you switch to oatmeal, the body still sees it exactly the same. Now, maybe if you're
Yeah.
eating still cut oatmeal, there's a bit more fiber, so it might slow it down a little bit, but
Yeah.
it's still mostly carbohydrates. And then
Right.
I love how you talk about too. where eating several times during the day, all you're doing is that roller coaster ride,
Yeah.
which is exactly the same thing I did, up and down. And you're not teaching your body. So I talk a lot about, which I'm sure you do as well, stored fat versus, or yeah, I think I call it, yeah, stored sugar versus stored fat.
Okay.
And if you're constantly eating, you're just using the energy of that food and you're not tapping into stored fat. And
Yeah.
I think this is really hard for people to understand because it's not about eating less and moving more.
Right.
It's about teaching your body to become a fat burner.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. So how would you explain that? Because I've done a gazillion episodes on
Yeah.
it, and
Yes.
it's not about fasting for deprivation. It's about what you said. Like, I think we have done a disservice of, I even see it with my own children, and I see it how I grew up is that, oh, if you don't eat everything on your plate, you're not going to get dessert or
Yeah.
something. So
Yes.
we at some point um stop listening to ourselves about what hunger feels like in our body, right? Because we've been told to eat 7 times a day to keep the blood sugars up and like all these things. So, how would you explain to somebody about actually tapping into the stored fat?
The way I always present it when I'm trying to connect with women that need my story too, let's just put it that way, is I ask them, do you want to be a sugar burner or do you want to be a fat burner? And
Hmm.
it takes them a minute to like, what are you saying? And then I'm
Yeah.
like, you're constantly putting sugar into your body all day long. What are you gonna, where do you think is gonna happen? How are you gonna burn off this? You want weight loss, right? The only way that's gonna happen is if you become a fat burner and constantly feeding your body this sugar, keep staying on the sugar cycle, and it's not gonna it's like the effort is not gonna lead to any
Yeah.
result, which is that cycle I was stuck in for so long. And again, I do see that the times that I did lose weight, I was like, I was hungry all the time because I wasn't focused on the protein and the
Fat.
satiating healthy fats,
Hmm.
right? Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, so it is, but I still think for many women there is a disconnect where it's like just reduce the calories because
Yes.
I worked with some people, and I don't think I can work with people who are so calorie obsessed anymore because it's such a mindset where they're like, well, I was eating 1800, now I'm eating 12, now I got to go to 7. And I'm like, no, no, it's
Yeah.
not about that. You're literally starving yourself, and now your body says, okay, now I actually have to hold on to fat because I don't feel safe releasing this. And but I think it's such a hard switch for many women to really allow themselves to eat um more protein, to feel satiated, for the cravings to so it's not willpower, it's not deprivation, the cravings just, and then you
Yes.
just don't, you're not hungry, you're not like the food noise, like all of these things just disappear. It's not through force, it's not through willpower, it's not through deprivation. It's a smarter strategy
Yeah.
of
A
of
better framework.
yeah, moving out of that old paradigm, which I really hope we're starting to move from there.
Yeah, I'm very excited that this proper nutrition is getting more talked about here in the States for sure, and
Yeah.
making news headlines and hopefully piquing curiosity because I'm very involved and active in the low carb space on X.com, and we're just all super excited about it. And I've connected with so many people who have completely changed their lives through this, and not just changed their physical appearance and lost a massive amount of weight, but there's so many people, everybody testifies out there too about how much more mental clarity they have and how they realize finally that this is like a whole health, a whole body, whole health person, body, mind, soul, heart, spirit, all of that is interconnected. And all of
Yeah.
those years I was white knuckling it and willpowering it through that calorie counting and deprivation and starvation. But I never thought about what was going on in my brain. And I definitely didn't think about it as a faith-based journey. So, and that was just part of the guilt and the shame too that got piled on. Like, I know deep down, I know I should be treating my body better, but I could not find the way to escape.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
very, very interesting. Yes. Well, I'm happy that you can share your story to inspire because people connect to different people, right, with the voice.
Mhm.
And the one difference that you and I have is that you lost weight, and I basically I've seen myself get a little more like more fat on my body, but because I've been in the fitness space since I was 18, I always kept my weight
Okay.
relatively under control.
Yes.
And probably not through great things at times because I definitely punished myself with, eating and then exercise. So I can't say it was done, in the best way. But a lot of times people will look at my story, and because I have not lost a significant amount of weight, they don't think I have a problem.
Mm. Right.
Right? So it's not always about weight, everybody. You can have a pretty like like a good weight body and still be going through emotional eating, sugar cravings,
Yes.
all of this stuff, right? And so
Right.
weight loss is part of it, but there's also just again your health. So I always say to people, just because you're thin doesn't mean you're healthy,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah. Yes.
So you've got to know your numbers. You have to look after your heart. Your hormones are changing. So don't get duped by being thin and thinking you're healthy.
Right. I
So that's
actually,
part of my
yeah.
message.
Yeah, I actually write about a story like this in my book, SugarFreed. I feature six stories of women that I've coached to health. And Heidi's story sounds a lot like yours. She was skinny her entire life. In fact, she's one of my best friends, so I'll just put that
Mhm.
out there. But I watched her. She was like we go on girls' weekend trips every summer, and she's out. She's the skinniest among all of us at the time, right? And she's out there doing her Zumba, and I'm just like, that girl's doing her Zumba and she's eating lettuce and she's not overweight, okay? But she's always saying, I gotta take this 10 pounds off, and she's because she had gained a little bit of weight as we're approaching menopause, right? But she called me up one day and she said, my doctor just diagnosed me with pre-diabetes, and she was freaking out. And I was like, okay, ho, 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 ho. So I helped her completely change up the way she was eating because she was grazing all day long and she was
Yeah.
eating healthy snacks that she thought, like Snackwell cookies, all the things that are loaded with um, just processed food, right? She was eating that stuff all day long. And so she completely changed her life. She reversed her prediabetes. She lost 20 pounds that she didn't think she needed to lose. She's
Hmm.
very fit and trim, and she's very conscientious now about what she puts in her body. And not only that, she's got so much more energy. She has brain clarity. She's just super excited to share that it is not always doesn't always have to be about weight, but she's what I call and what people call that skinny fat person. You
Yeah.
know, who knew what was going on, or what kind of fat was settling around her organs and stuff. So she caught it in time. She's living, thriving, surviving, fit and well, and yeah, she's a big testimony, and she's very happy that I was able to share her story in my book for others
Yeah.
to read.
And I think that's important to talk about because some people think it's just the weight. It's not the weight. It's not. You can look pretty, I don't want to use the word normal because that's not the word I'm going for, but you can have a pretty, fit frame and
Yes.
still be. And I definitely would, I definitely fell into the trap of, oh, because I worked out, I can do this,
Hmm.
right? And so you do have to. That's why I said at the beginning, like in my book, I use a tagline, a journey to vibrant health. It's
Mm.
not about your weight. It's
Yes.
about your health. And when you start to put your health first and you
Hmm.
look after your cellular health, everything starts to fall into place.
Yeah. Yes.
So it's trusting in that process.
Yeah. I belong to a local fit body boot camp gym too for women ages 55 and up is my time slot that I go to. And there's some thin women that go there and they're constantly like complaining about their aches and pains and all this. And I'm like,
Yeah.
you got to get off the sugar. If you want to lessen those aches and pains and those joint issues, you
Yeah.
got to get off the sugar. And they're like, "Oh, really?" Because they think I'm not overweight. I'm like,
Yeah.
you
That's
want to move?
exactly it. That's my
Yeah,
point right there.
yes. Like if you want to move better and feel better and be able to squatty on the potty when you're 85, let's get you off the sugar. So,
Yeah, because as sugar, as everybody knows, and again, it's not sugar from a sugar bowl, we're talking like simple carbohydrates here,
mhm.
is very like inflammatory on your joints. You're going to
Yes,
have aches and pains.
right. Yep.
Yes. So is there anything that what would be like, you know, do you crave like what would be sweet that you have now? Do you?
Well, it's really interesting right now. I'm a moderator in the 40-day sugar fast, which is a Christian book written by that just kind of it took off. This woman called for a 40-day sugar fast on social media, ended up being a book, and now she's got like tens of thousands of people that join her every year.
Mm-hmm.
So people ask me, "Well, you don't eat sugar. What are you giving up for the sugar
Mm-hmm.
fast?" So for me, my little indulgence of a spoonful of peanut butter every once in a while is actually tastes very sweet to me. And that's just
Mm-hmm.
natural peanut butter with peanuts and salt actually tastes sweet to me. So that's what I laid down for this sugar fast. And I didn't eat a lot of it. Like I wouldn't eat a half a jar, but with this by the spoonful, maybe 1 tablespoon every a couple times a week. So that is something that would taste sweet to me. I do make some low carb desserts every once in a while if I'm like going to a church potluck or something. I like to try to show people like here, I'm not deprived. I can make these little peanut butter keto balls and people enjoy them. That people who are conscientious and know that they need to get off the sugar, they can enjoy those. But I don't typically make them to have them here in the house. I really don't have a lot of cravings for sweets.
Mm-hmm.
Like even before I went into full-blown menopause, was eating the very low carb lifestyle before as I was leading up to that, and just not having those sugar cravings is, unless you experience it, it's kind of hard to explain it other
I
than trust me, it's a
yeah.
beautiful thing.
No, I get it. I get it. And I still have things, but not like I used to, not in the same way.
Hmm.
And I say to people like it is really hard to understand if you've had these issues because you
Yeah.
just don't crave them the same. And then when you eat something like you said, peanut butter, you actually notice the sugar. Or if you eat something you used to eat, you're like, oh my God, that is sickly. Like it's
Yes.
sickly sweet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, what was I going to ask you? Something about, oh my goodness, it just escaped my mind and then came back. Oh, no, it hasn't come back yet. It's somewhere in there. Oh, jeepers. Um, okay, I'll see. It was in your story. Hmm. Oh. Okay, it's gone. Anyway, all right. So
Okay.
what are you working on now?
Oh, goodness. Okay, so I'm hoping to put together a little journal diary type thing to go as a companion for my book, Sugar Freed. The full title of my book is Sugar Freed: Stop Losing the Weight Loss Battle, Start Gaining the Victory. And it's Christian living set up in 4 sections where we have to resolve it. Like we have to get real, ladies. We have to figure out how we got here, why we want to get out, and I get it. I've been there. Like I understand. I always tell my potential coaching clients, like, I know where you're at, I know where you've been, and I know where you long to be. So I'd be so happy to link arms with you. And then I have a whole section on restoring the body, a whole section on renewing the mind, a whole section on redeeming the spirit. So just really trying to get that information out into the world through podcasting, through my coaching, through speaking. Um, I have free resources that I love to share with people, and I do free master classes to help just spark some interest in this. I mean,
Yes.
that's the thing. It just took that little spark that Dr. Fung shared on that little video telling me that this was not my fault. And now, as a caveat, as a health and wellness coach, even though I accept that it was not entirely my fault, right? But now it's my responsibility to do something
Yes.
about it. And that's why I'm here, is to help people. So I coaching, speaking, I have a YouTube channel that people can come to and get a lot of free content as well too. So yeah, I left corporate America to do this, which is
Hmm.
crazy to me because I loved my career in accountancy. I was very happy there. And now I'm writing, speaking, coaching. I'm using words instead of counting numbers, which is really kind of bizarre to me. But yeah, that's what I'm working on right now, and just helping people get out there. A free resource that I have that maybe you can share, Tanya, with everybody is called Break the Sugar Cycle. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a 7-step plan, and you can do it at your own pace. But it's a free guide that your listeners can grab at www.breaksugarcycle.com. Or
Okay.
you'll put that in the show
Yeah.
notes for me too. So, yeah, so that is, yeah, this is my passion now. I really can't believe that I left a 32-year corporate career to do this. But now,
Nice. Well,
yes.
there you go, right? When you follow your passion, your soul's journey.
Yeah.
I know what I was going to ask you is,
Okay.
a lot of people, like you said, you didn't realize you were a sugar addict. And then did you realize you were an emotional eater?
Probably yes, because I was turning to food a lot, and there was a lot of times when I did that secret eating, and like I would hit the drive-through on the way home from dropping my daughter off at the ice arena or something, and I'd be like, "What am I doing?"
Mm,
But now that I am healthier and in a better place, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, I can, I have better insight now to see like exactly what I was doing. And the women I coach, I mean, we all are emotional eaters. Some of us do it for protection. Some of us do it simply because we have great memories of our grandma making cookies for
yeah.
us all the time. Not all of us have been through some sort of trauma. Most of us have, but not all of us have. And we just turn to food and sugar for that coping and comfort, even in really horrible situations or even like celebrations.
Hmm.
I always call out the church on our love for potlucks. It's like there's nothing wrong with gathering and fellowship and fellowshipping over a meal, but I don't know, in my history, the church potluck was a problem for me because I would want to, make sure that I got all the good food before it was
Yeah.
gone. And that's all part of a food fixation and a food obsession and a food addiction. So we're hindering people that are struggling with that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a big one for me was the really like the connection of feeling a certain way and reaching for food, and I had to unwind all of that. Like, what am I feeling? Food's not going to fix it. So there was unwinding all of that. And then potlucks and all you can eat buffets. I said to my husband, they're not good for me because I go in there with like I got to try everything. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. And I want to get the stuff before it's gone, right?
yes.
So
Yeah.
I learned a lot about myself when I did my sugar addiction training so that I can be a sugar addiction specialist. And I have a diagnostic tool that I take my clients through to have some good insight onto their level of sugar addiction. But yeah, I never would have called myself a sugar addict. But one thing I would love to share is that what I, in hindsight now, and what I see working for my coaching clients is getting the food choices down is so powerful to help us overcome that sugar addiction.
Hmm.
And as a way, because the food choices we actually, ladies, we actually can make good choices. We can actually follow through. And when we're filling up and satiating ourselves with whole, nutritious foods, it becomes so much easier. And again, it's one of those things like you have to actually experience to maybe believe
Yeah.
full-heartedly what I'm saying, but it's true. And then you're not thinking about food all day. And then you can take that next step of overcoming the reasons why we emotionally eat and how to break this sugar addiction, how to break free from this cycle. That's what the freed part is in my book. I hope that that is never lost on anybody. Like sugar freed, the emphasis is on the freed because breaking free from this yo-yo dieting cycle, or what I call circling the mountain over and over again, uh, it just takes such a weight off your shoulders. You can drop the guilt, you can drop the shame, you can drop any regret you might have over all the years of bad dietary advice you've been given. You can adopt new healthy lifestyles. You can build better habits, healthier habits. We can
Yeah.
ditch bad habits. We can instill great healthy habits. And then you can join me in going back to the mountain you couldn't climb, and you can that mountain again. And my husband and I just did this a couple months ago. We went back to Rocky Mountain National Park, and I knew I was going to go up to Nymph Lake. I knew I was going to make Nymph Lake easily now. And then right above Nymph Lake, you go to another lake called Dream Lake, and we made it
Hmm.
there. And then you go to another lake above that called Emerald Lake. We spent the whole day on that trail. And
Nice.
I love mountains. I was born in the Allegheny Mountains of Pennsylvania, so I feel like I have the mountains in my soul. So not going from not being able to climb a half-mile trail to just spending the whole day going way beyond what I couldn't do before was just yeah, I'm just so grateful to God for dragging me through this journey. Some days I don't
Nice.
have to I'm so glad he's strong because he had to pick up my really heavy weight. And I'm not talking about my physical weight. I'm talking about all the emotional weight that I was carrying all those years too. And then just pull me into this freedom. And it's something I get to celebrate every day and watch women step into too. So it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, you know what? I love doing it too. It's just to help people get healthier, just free their mind. Then they can start doing other things with their life and just not being in pain. So many people are in pain. And like you said, you don't know what you don't know sometimes. Like when you talk about the brain fog, like you don't realize until you get to the other side. And it's just whether some of it is like you said it for the first part of your book is wanting this, but trusting in yourself and trusting that there is
Yes.
something different out there.
Yeah. And
Yes.
the trust is hard fought. It's
Yeah.
hard earned after so many years of failure.
Oh
It
yeah.
that hurts. Losing 40 pounds and gaining 55, and then losing 75 pounds and gaining 90. It's just, first of all, it's hard on your body physically, obviously, but it just wrecks your soul every single time
Yeah.
something like that happens. And you're like, what is wrong with me?
Yeah.
Well, my friend, anybody listening that has had a similar story to me, I just want to encourage you that there's nothing wrong with you. You can only willpower through something for so long, and that this is not entirely your fault. Like,
Mm-hmm.
but there is a way that we can, step out and step up. And I always say when we feel better, we serve better.
Mm-hmm.
That's my secret passion, is to get these women feeling better so we can serve better, right?
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Yeah, because when you are in the depth of that, my pivotal moment is when I had children. And that was like the start of it because I needed energy.
Yeah.
And I felt really cranky because you eat sugar and you feel cranky. So then I was short-tempered.
Yes.
And then I would make cookies and my kids would come home and they're like, "Where are all the cookies?" And I'd be like, "Oh my God, I ate them all." So
Hmm.
there was, these things where I had somebody either holding me accountable or or I wanted to show up better for my children. And
Yes.
that was really the start of ditching this all or nothing, punishment of exercise, punishing myself with food, and really starting to step into something bigger for myself. And it's definitely a journey, and I'm still on it.
Yes. Me
I'm
too.
still on it.
Yes.
But and I tell people, as soon as you let go of trying to fix this in a weekend or thinking you can't ever have something again as soon, because I just say to people, I eat whatever I want whenever I want. I had to let go, and it's different for all people, right? So you have to find what works for you. But when I
Right.
finally just let go
Hmm.
and stop trying to force and have more trust and faith and honor the journey, I was like, okay, I'm gonna be all
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. And honor your body. Yeah.
Honor your body. And
Right.
no, the other thing is, that
Honor your body,
and
right?
no, the other thing is that if I don't, if it's not 100%, it's not about failing. I also switch that. It's not a failure. You're learning. You're
Yes.
learning. And then what can I learn? Oh, okay. What do I need to do? So yes, it's you have to be in it for the ride.
That's for sure. And for some reason, I know the reason. I know God brings the women to me that I call them old Christine. Like they're just like old Christine.
Hmm.
They're also recovering perfectionists. That most of them are recovering perfectionists, and so we have to really work hard at letting this perfection go. Right? We
Hmm.
are human. We are going to have slips, but the now that we're learning how to fuel our body properly, the slips are going to get smaller and smaller. We're not going to end up in a 6 month relapse of sugar binges because now we know what we know that sugar is driving disease and we want to reverse the disease. But yeah, the perfectionism has to like that's another part of the battle too. But it's I mean it bubbles up in me, a type A person, perfectionist. I still have weight I want to lose. I'm not as fit and trim as I was like to be, and it's due to chronic stress, which is we could have a whole nother conversation
Right.
about that. But I've been living in chronic stress for 7 years, and now I'm working closely with a functional medicine doctor to help me overcome that. But you can't feel your healthiest when you're living with chronic stress, and so I've been battling it and I feel like one of the best reasons I've been able to show up and still have energy and thrive every day is because of the way I eat. So I just need to get over like really extenuating circumstances in my life have caused it, and I recognize that. And so we all are a work in process, right?
Absolutely, right? And then when I always call it peeling the layer of the onion. Once you get that layer done, then the
Hmm.
next layer. You can't get to the
Yes.
core until you've gone through all the layers.
Right,
So,
exactly.
and
And
that's the journey. And you can
yeah,
either look at it with dread, or you can be like, I'm excited. I'm
yes,
excited. Like,
yeah.
what's going to come up next?
Yeah,
Perfect.
I'm even excited about the healing chronic stress journey because it's like I can see improvement day by day by day, like sleeping better, not feeling like I'm living in hypervigilance every single day. And like the progress is slow, but I know that this is just another layer. It's another
Yeah.
layer. So
Yeah.
um
No,
I'm just
perfect.
yeah, I'm just in awe of the way our bodies are created
Oh,
and, even down to the mitochondria and how it
yes.
can heal our bodies, right? And it's really fascinating to me. And so I will never give up. I will just keep plugging away.
Well, I know you were listening to the interview with Beth and I, and again, you can resonate with the journey. Like you go through one layer, then you get to another layer, and you're looking at it with excitement. And I always say to
Yeah.
people, we're just cells. We're
Yeah.
just
Yes.
cells. And so, if you can start to look at yourself as a cellular being and feed these cells what they need. Um, and again, we could have another whole hour conversation just about bringing the nervous system in, bringing chronic stress
Yes.
strategies. But I always say, like, when you start to feed your body with proper nutrients, you start to feed your cells what they're actually wanting. And then when you feed your cells what they're wanting, you start to think better. You're more
Yes.
clear. That
Yes.
is like a very, it's the first step. It's cellular nutrition. Your
Mhm.
cells need proper nutrition. And I really hope I know they flipped the pyramid here in the States. I don't even know what's happening in Canada, to be honest, because I'm so in my own bubble that I'm just like,
Yes.
I've been talking about this stuff for so long that I don't even pay attention to,
Right.
things, because I know in my heart, like, we need real food, real whole food. You need protein, you need healthy fats.
Yes.
And we've done an experiment for the last 30 years, maybe even longer, on low fat diets, and it's caused brain issues and cellular issues. And I really hope people start waking up and understanding the unbelievable, like, the body is just, oh, it's insane. It's beautiful.
It
So
is.
give it good nutrients,
Yeah.
body, mind, and soul. Beautiful. Anything you'd like to end on that you feel like you haven't shared? And then just, I'll put in the show notes too, but where people can find you. And I've just really enjoyed our conversation
Yeah,
today.
me too. Thank you for having me. And you just to add to what you just said, we only have one body, right, in this life. Like so, I could regret the years that I did damage to it, but
Mm.
I wouldn't be the person I am today if I hadn't had to go through those trials. So, like anybody listening, just to know that you can break this cycle. You can. I know it sounds impossible. I know, but I want you to stop circling the mountain and just start climbing it with me. Like, take it a step at a time, day by day, and find that proper nourishment can really heal your body, your mind, and your soul. And it's a beautiful thing. So, yes, you can find me on my website, christinetrimpe.com. Grab that free guide at breaksugarcycle.com and connect with me. Let me know you heard me on this episode. I'd love to hear from you.
Perfect. Well, thank you, everybody. I will put all of Christine's information in the show notes. And, if this story resonated with you, please share it with somebody because there is so much light and glory and living and health and vibrancy when we can just step out of darkness. And it is one step at a time. It is one step at a time. And this is such a beautiful gift to share with somebody because it means you love them. You love them and you want to see them thrive, right? You want to be with people. And if there's something that resonated with you, by all means, you can reach out to Christine, you can reach out to me because we're just here to help. That's it. We just want your life to be more expansive
Yeah.
and bright. So thank you everybody for listening, and we'll see you next time on Menopause Made Easy with Tanya.